Hello everyone. Today, we are going to learn about narrative text. Let's begin with the first section. What is narrative text? Narrative text is a type of text that tells a story or a series of events. The story is usually imaginary or fictional, although it can also be based on real events. The main purpose of narrative text is to entertain the readers and often to teach a moral lesson. For example, stories like Cinderella, Snow White, or Ti-Moune Mars are examples of narrative texts. The purpose of narrative text. Now, let's look at the purposes of narrative text. First, it is to entertain the readers with an interesting story. Second, it allows readers to experience different situations through the characters. Third, many narrative texts teach us important values or moral lessons, such as honesty, kindness, bravery, or responsibility. So, narrative texts are not only entertaining, but also educational. Types of narrative text. There are many types of narrative texts. The first is fairy tale, such as Cinderella. The second is fable, where animals can speak and behave like humans. An example is The Tortoise and the Hare. The third is folktale, such as Ti-Moune Mars. The fourth is legend, for example Marlin Kundun. The fifth is myth, which tells stories about gods or supernatural beings. The sixth is fantasy, such as Harry Potter. The seventh is science fiction, which is based on science and technology. The eighth is adventure story, which tells exciting journeys. The ninth is mystery, where the characters solve a mystery. And the last one is historical fiction, which combines historical events with fictional characters. 4. Generic structure of narrative text. Every narrative text has four main parts. The first is orientation. This part introduces the characters, the setting, and the time of the story. The second is complication. Here, a problem or conflict begins. The third is resolution. In this part, the characters solve the problem. Finally, there is reorientation or coda. This part ends the story and sometimes gives us a moral lesson. Remember these four stages, because almost every narrative text follows this pattern. Lexico-grammatical features. First, vocabulary. Narrative texts often use words related to time, such as once upon a time, one day, then, finally, and suddenly. They also use words describing characters, action verbs, and descriptive adjectives. Second, past tenses. Narrative texts usually tell events that happened in the past. We commonly use simple past tense. For example, the prince rescued the princess. We also use past continuous tense to describe actions that were happening at a certain time. Example: the princess was walking in the forest. Another tense is past perfect tense, which describes an action completed before another past action. Example: the giant had left before the villagers arrived. Next, narrative texts often use direct speech. Direct speech shows the exact words spoken by a character. For example, "I will help you," said the prince. We can also use indirect speech or reported speech. Instead of quoting the exact words, we report what someone said. For example, the prince said that he would help her. Notice that will changes to would because the sentence is reported. Narrative texts also use conjunctions, such as when, while, because, before, after, until, so, and but, to connect ideas. Finally, they use time connectives to show the sequence of events. Examples include first, next, then, after that, suddenly, finally, and in the end. These words help readers follow the story clearly. So, today we have learned 5 important points about narrative text: the definition, the purpose, the types, the generic structure, and the language features. Understanding these 5 points will help you read, analyze, and write narrative texts more effectively. Thank you for your attention. Do you have any questions?